Who was Adolf Hitler, and why does his name still echo through history, like a chilling whisper that sends shivers down our spines? What made this man, born in obscurity, become a symbol of terror across continents and generations? He was a man of modest beginnings, born in a small Austrian town, far from the centers of power and influence. Yet he would rise to become one of the most reviled figures in human history, reshaping the fate of nations through fear and fanaticism. His name is, pretty much synonymous with cruelty, with genocide, with the systematic extermination of millions, with the very darkest depths of human nature where reason is drowned by rage and empathy is replaced by ideology. Hitler's journey from obscurity to infamy is a stark warning, an unsettling reminder of how fragile democracy can be. A reminder of how hatred, unchecked ambition, and the manipulation of fear can twist a society into something unrecognizable, and how a poisonous ideology can poison a nation and drag the world into chaos, leaving only ashes in its wake. It's a story we must revisit, not to glorify the darkness but to understand it, to learn from it, to confront the uncomfortable truths of our past, to ensure that such horrors never again darken our world, and that the light of peace is never taken for granted. This is the story of Adolf Hitler, a story of ambition, hatred, and ultimately devastating loss. A story that shaped the 20th century. It's a story not just about one man's evil, but about the millions who suffered under his tyranny, whose lives were shattered by his vision of supremacy, and the millions more who fought and died to stop him, to restore freedom and dignity to a broken world. It's a story we must never forget, because forgetting invites repetition. The story begins not in a grand palace or on a battlefield, but in the quiet Austrian town of Braunau am Inn, nestled along the banks of the Inn River near the German border. Here, in the year 1889, Adolf Hitler was born, an unremarkable child in an unremarkable town, surrounded by modest homes and the rhythms of provincial life. His early life held little hint of the darkness to come. He played in the streets, attended school, and lived a life not unlike many other boys of his time. He was, a quiet boy, prone to daydreams and artistic aspirations, often lost in thought as he sketched the world around him. He dreamed of being a painter, of capturing the beauty of the world on canvas, believing that art could elevate the soul and give life meaning. He applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts, hoping to hone his craft and make his mark on the world through art, a world he saw as full of potential and promise. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The city that inspired him would soon become the backdrop of his disillusionment. His application was rejected, not once, but twice. The rejection letters were more than just setbacks. They were the first cracks in a fragile identity. The sting of rejection cut deep, leaving him adrift, his dreams shattered, his sense of purpose slipping through his fingers. He drifted through Vienna, scraping by on odd jobs, selling postcards and sketches, clinging to the remnants of a dream that was quickly fading. His artistic ambitions slowly turning to bitterness and resentment, he began to see the world not as a canvas, but as a place that had rejected him. It was in these years, wandering the bustling streets of Vienna, surrounded by wealth and poverty, culture and conflict, that the seeds of Hitler's twisted ideology began to take root. The outbreak of World War I in 1914 would prove to be a turning point in Hitler's life. He saw the war as, like, an escape from the disappointments of his life, a chance to prove himself, to find purpose and belonging. He enlisted in the German army, eager to serve his adopted country. On the battlefields of the Western Front, Hitler found a sense of camaraderie and purpose he had never known before. He served with distinction, earning the Iron Cross for his bravery. But the war also left its mark on him, both physically and emotionally. He was injured in a gas attack, leaving his lungs scarred. The defeat of Germany in 1918, a defeat he refused to accept, filled him with a burning resentment. The humiliation of defeat, the economic chaos that followed, the political instability, all of these fueled his growing anger and his search for someone to blame. In the aftermath of the war, Hitler found an outlet for his bitterness and anger in politics. He joined the small, fringe German Workers' Party, a group that shared his nationalist, anti-Semitic views. He discovered he had a talent for public speaking, a way of captivating audiences with his fiery rhetoric. His words, filled with passion and rage, resonated with many Germans who felt betrayed and humiliated by the war's outcome. He offered them scapegoats for their suffering: the Jews, the communists, the liberals, basically anyone he deemed responsible for Germany's downfall. He promised to restore Germany to its former glory, to avenge the humiliation of defeat, to create a 1,000-year Reich where Germans would reign supreme. His words, amplified by the new technology of radio, spread like wildfire across a nation desperate for hope, for someone to believe in. With each fiery speech, Hitler's grip on Germany, tightened. The Nazi Party, once just a fringe group, grew in popularity, fueled by fear, resentment, and this powerful promise of a return to greatness. In 1933, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. His rise to power was, well, complete. Democracy crumbled under his iron fist. Political opponents were silenced, imprisoned, even murdered. The press was muzzled, its voice replaced by the relentless propaganda machine of the Nazi Party. Germany, once a beacon of enlightenment and culture, was transformed into a totalitarian state where dissent was crushed, and fear, honestly, reigned supreme. The Nazi regime, with its poisonous ideology of hate, began to systematically strip away the rights of Jews, enacting a series of, increasingly discriminatory laws. Jews were banned from public service, their businesses were boycotted, their children were expelled from schools. They became outcasts in their own country, stripped of their rights, their humanity denied. In 1939, Hitler's ambitions reached beyond the borders of Germany. Driven by his twisted ideology of racial purity and territorial expansion, he unleashed the horrors of World War II upon the world. Poland was the first to fall, overrun by the might of the German war machine, but it would not be the last. The Nazi war machine, fueled by hatred and fueled by conquest, rolled across Europe, leaving a trail of devastation in its wake. Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, France. One by one, they fell, their cities bombed, their people subjugated. The world watched in horror as the shadow of the swastika spread across Europe, a symbol of terror, of oppression, of unimaginable cruelty. But even in the darkest of times, the human spirit refused to be extinguished. From the ashes of war, resistance movements sprung up, ordinary people taking extraordinary risks to fight back against Nazi tyranny. As the war raged on, Hitler's true evil came into horrifying focus. The persecution of Jews, which had begun with discrimination and exclusion, escalated into a systematic campaign of genocide, the Holocaust. Jews, along with other groups deemed undesirable by the Nazi regime, were rounded up and sent to concentration camps, places of unimaginable cruelty and suffering. Families were torn apart, their lives extinguished in gas chambers or worked to death as slave laborers. The world recoiled in horror at the atrocities committed in the death camps: Auschwitz, Treblinka, Sobibor, names that will forever be etched in our collective memory as symbols of man's inhumanity to man. The Holocaust stands as a stark reminder of the consequences of unchecked hatred, of indifference to the suffering of others. It is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, to the courage of those who fought back against unimaginable evil, and to the enduring power of hope, even in the darkest of times. As the war turned against Germany, Hitler's grip on power began to slip. The Allied forces, led by the United States, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union, closed in on Berlin, determined to crush the Nazi regime once and for all. In the spring of 1945, with defeat imminent, Hitler retreated to his underground bunker in Berlin, a shadow of his former self. There, surrounded by his inner circle, he chose to end his own life rather than face capture and judgment for his crimes. With his death, the Nazi regime crumbled, leaving behind a devastated continent and a world forever scarred by the horrors it had unleashed. The world celebrated the end of the war, but the scars of conflict ran deep. Millions lay dead, their lives cut short by the horrors of war. Cities lay in ruins, economies shattered, families torn apart. The task of rebuilding, both physically and emotionally, would be long and arduous. The rise and fall of Adolf Hitler is a chilling reminder of the fragility of peace, a stark lesson in how quickly a society can descend into chaos when fear and division are allowed to fester. It speaks to the seductive power of hatred, how it can disguise itself as strength and how easily it can spread when left unchallenged. And it reminds us of the very real consequences of indifference, how silence too can be a form of complicity. It is a story we must never forget, not just as history but as a warning etched into the conscience of humanity. Not to dwell in the darkness, but to recognize its shape, so we may never be blind to it again. We must study it, teach it, and pass on its lessons to future generations. We must remember the victims, the millions who suffered and perished under the Nazi regime, whose lives were stolen by cruelty and intolerance, so that their suffering is never in vain, and their stories never silenced. We must confront the hate, the prejudice, the discrimination that fueled Hitler's rise to power, and recognize its echoes in our world today. We must ensure that such horrors never again darken our world, not through hope alone, but through action. We must all be vigilant, for the seeds of hatred can take root anywhere, in any time. It is our duty, our responsibility to speak out against injustice, to challenge bigotry wherever it appears, to defend the rights of all people, regardless of race, religion, or background. To build a world where tolerance and understanding prevail, where compassion is stronger than fear. Only then can we truly honor the memory of those who suffered and ensure that the darkness that consumed Hitler's Germany never again engulfs our world.